Be sure to download our app on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon. BSB Radio, the new Kansas City Connect. Feel the sound.
Black girl magic, y'all can't stand it, y'all can't ban it. Made out like a bandit, they've been trying hard just to make us all vanish. I suggest they put a flag on a whole nother planet. Black girl magic, y'all can't stand it, y'all can't ban it. Made out like a bandit, they've been trying hard just to make us all vanish. I suggest they put a flag on a whole nother planet. Black girl magic, y'all can't stand it, y'all can't ban it. Made out like a bandit, they've been trying hard just to make us all vanish. I suggest they put a flag on a whole nother planet.
I'm Leo Sunfire.
And I'm Dr. Love.
Welcome to the Black Portal Power, where we center the Black experience. Open your mind.
Free your soul.
For the portal is open. Hey everybody, welcome back to Black Portal Power. I am Leo Sunfire.
And I'm Dr. Love.
And we are getting ready to get into it. Let's do it.
Let's. So how was your week, Leo?
My week was very exhausting, but that's just part of living life and loving life, You gotta work hard sometimes to get what you want. You ain't gotta give everything to get what you want, but you gotta work hard to get what you want. But
you gotta play hard. So any playtime for you this week?
Nah, no playtime,
Always keeping everything close to chest. I'm trying to get you to tell us some secrets.
Then what's fun? Where's the fun in that? You know what I'm saying? If I reveal the secrets, God damn. People want to know, inquiring minds.
Want to know, including me.
Well, we had such a wonderful time last week introducing Black Portal Power and getting into the show. And so I am very excited to bring some more information and some new topics, hot topics.
Yes, we've got a lot on the lineup for today, so let's get right to it, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right, let me clear my throat. So I want to start with, let's start with Black Wall Street. So this has been really intriguing to me. One of the things I do in my day job is I really look at communities and Black communities in particular. And so one of the things, I think you and I know a little bit about, but maybe not all of our listeners, certainly not all in our community, know about Black Wall Street. And so a lot of times when you say Black Wall Street, most people readily think of Tulsa, in the Greenwood district of Tulsa. So a little bit of history. Early 1900s, an African-American man by the name of O.W. Gurley moves from Arkansas to Tulsa, and he buys up 40 acres of land that would become the Greenwood district. And essentially, because of segregation and the fact that we really did live siloed from whites post slavery, really allowed him to buy these areas. Now, here's what he did that I think was absolutely G. The best G move ever was to make sure that those lands were purchased and then only sold to other Black people, right? And so he was building an avenue for Blacks to migrate from the South and really have their own community, own enclaves, right? And so the average Black family in that area was actually making above minimum wage for their time, and they were really upwardly mobile Blacks. In an article that I pulled up for this purpose, they said, for instance, as a result of segregation, a dollar circulated 36 to 100 times within these Black enclaves, these Black
Absolutely.
Wall Streets, because our money, our presence wasn't accepted in other places, or in white spaces, I should say. So by the time they developed this area of Tulsa, at the time, Oklahoma only had 2 airports, and it's reported that 6 Black families in Greenwood owned their own planes. That is phenomenal, especially given that they literally started from the bottom and made it to the top. Now they here, right? Drake didn't even know the half,
he didn't understand it.
But Leo, give us some background on Black Wall Streets and where this actually came about.
Well, okay, so during all of this, after the emancipation, I should say, there was this, I want to give it a name, and I can't figure out the word.
Legislation. I don't really, you're right. There's really no term for it.
No, and it's called the Freedmen's Bureau. Abraham Lincoln. I don't really call him president because you know how I feel. But Abraham Lincoln set this bill for emancipated slaves to be able to go free and have an organization where they can receive commerce and trade and make money amongst themselves and create communities of their own. And that was in March 1865. Well, in 1866, Andrew Jackson vetoed it as after they assassinated Abraham Lincoln.
Gotcha.
He got rid of that as fast and as soon as possible. So within this bureau, they developed these things called black codes, where they used to restrict free blacks after if it was vetoed, it was used to restrict blacks from freedom and compelled them to work for very, very low wages, pretty much slavery again. But they could not own them anymore, so they had to make it seem like they were doing them a favor by giving them these small, very, very low wages where they could barely survive. To go along with the fact that they had unraveled the bill that was allowing them to create wealth within themselves, that just created a whole different atmosphere for the freedom, the slaves that were free, and a lot of them wanted to go back and I want to say become slaves again, but they wanted to live with massa again. You know, it caused a mentality. It's a mentality.
Yeah. And so that's essentially why they were moving en masse away from the South. I mean, not that the black codes weren't in effect in the North, but the opportunities for them just became more and more truncated in the South. But what I feel is so powerful about all of this is that we have always been able to create something out of nothing, being given the very bare minimum, if that, starting at a deficit and then building. But what typically happens for us, and maybe not for other racial and ethnic groups, right? Because this idea of enclaves isn't new, right? This is how we have little Chinatowns, little Italies, little Havanas, little Haitis in different parts of the United States. But yet we haven't seen that sort of vibrancy continue for our communities. And so after, Mr. Gurley establishes what becomes known as Black Wall Street in Tulsa, when their economy becomes booming, so we're talking about they built their own schools, they built their own commerce, businesses, the whole nine. Not even a good 20 plus years later, it is all burned down.
Absolutely.
And it all starts with the same stereotype, the same trope that's used to justify, them destroying our communities, lynching us at will, that a black man accosted a white woman.
Absolutely.
And so this resulted in the massacre in, I want to say this was 1921.
Yes.
And there were, so hundreds of people were killed because by this time we're talking about 35 city blocks is what equated to Black Wall Street, and hundreds more arrested, most of them being black, not hardly any whites arrested for this, even though the black community of Tulsa was targeted.
Absolutely.
And so how do we, this brings up the issue time and time again. Even right after this happened to the Greenwood district, what happened was that the city commissioned a committee to investigate, this massacre that happened. And the first thing they recommended was reparations to those to surviving Black families, and for those lands to be given back to them. And we know that did not happen, right? And that's not to say that Greenwood doesn't still exist. You know, I've had the pleasure of visiting Tulsa a few times last year and just really see this area for myself, but I'm sure it's nothing like what it was when it was first built, nor does it have that same, you know, energy and vibrancy. So how do we address that? I mean, is reparations even realistic? Do we kind of, you know, what I loved about this was, you know, if you look at people like Marcus Garvey, W.E.B. Du Bois, they always said like, hey, listen, we need to figure out self-sufficiency. But how do you figure out self-sufficiency in a country where the minute we become self-sufficient, we are attacked and targeted?
We are attacked and targeted because we have only gone halfway with the self-sufficiency. We have not gone 100% with relying on ourselves for anything. We have always allowed for someone else to orchestrate how our lives should look and be. And one of the things that keeps us from wanting to or being able to receive reparations is because you have Team A over here that's saying, no, we want that. And then we got Team B over here saying, well, if we get it, then what y'all gonna do with it? Who cares what someone does with what belongs to them? I mean, so reparations is something that is possible, but we haven't found unity within ourselves to understand what it is that we need to do to get it, to receive reparations. Though the people in Tulsa, they were so afraid of what happened. I mean, so many people died and their loved ones in front of them. They fled, and rightfully so. Coming back and thinking that someone's going to give them something on the land that destroyed their lives, I don't really see how that's a possibility for them to feel safe and secure about anything that's said and done to them. So I don't know. I mean, I want to kind of backtrack and say that this is, you spoke on Tulsa, but there was so many other towns and cities that experienced almost the same thing. The massacre of Tulsa was just the biggest one because Tulsa was a front runner in economics at that time. But there were over 200 black towns were established by 1888, and Tulsa was the leading one. So just imagine how many times this has happened in other places that weren't even spoken of. But because Tulsa was the front runner, they got the headlines and people got to hear the story of Tulsa. But reparations, I mean, that's a subject that I am very willing to speak on and very willing to go round for round, pound for pound with someone on. It's just, what are we gonna do to get people to understand that they need it or that they want it, and that but when it is received, that it's theirs and they can do what they want to with it. And if they go buy a whole bunch of Nikes with that reparations, none of my business. But I'm just saying, I think that's a dumb move, you know. But cultivating our minds, you won't care about Nikes. Cultivating our land and making people understand that there is something better than tangible things. They wouldn't care about that. I have to let you know a little bit of something about the banking system that went further even after Tulsa, and it was, well, actually the first black bank owned was the Bingham Bank. It has been it was established and it was definitely taken down. But then in 1921, around the same time Tulsa massacre, we had the Citizens Bank, and they had generated $388 million, and 21 African banks assets, and 4.7 billion in the assets, and 1.1 trillion in buying power. Wow. Yeah, this is the bank, the Citizens Bank. And then also the One United, which is still in progress right now, and it's the first black-owned internet banking system.
Wow, did not know that.
Yeah, you know, you might see an advertisement from time to time on the you know, Facebook, social media pages and everything. Just check it out. I mean, we got banking for our people, so let's not act as if we are not capable of doing this damn thing.
Quite capable,
you know
apparently.
What I'm saying?
But we got to go to break. More to come on Black Portal Power.
Our government has a firm policy not to capitulate to terrorist demands, that no concessions policy remains in force. In spite of the wildly speculative and false stories about arms for hostages and alleged ransom payments, we did not, repeat, did not trade weapons or anything else for hostages. Nor will we.
The ballad of the bullet, some freedom or some bullshit. Will we ever do it big or just keep settling for little shit? We brag on having bread, but none of us are bakers. We all talk having greens, but none of us own acres. If none of us own acres and none of us grow wheat, then who will feed our people when our people need to eat? So it seems our people starve from lack of understanding, cause all we seem to give them is some ballin' and some dancing and some talking about our car and imaginary mansions. We should be indicted for bullshit we inciting, telling children deaf and pretending it's exciting. We are advertisements for agony and pain. We exploit the youth, we tell them to join the gang. We tell them dope stories, introduce them to the game. Just like Oliver North introduced us to cocaine in the 80s when them bricks came on military plane.
A few months ago, I told the American people I did not trade arms for hostages. My heart and my best intentions still tell me that's true, but the facts and the evidence tell me it is not.
The end of the Reagan era. I'm like Lemma 12, old enough to understand the shit had changed forever. They declared the war on drugs, like a war on terror. But what it really did was let the police terrorize whoever. But mostly black boys, but they would call us niggas and lay us on our belly while they fingers on their triggers. They boots was on our head, they dogs was on our crotches, and they would beat us up if we had diamonds on our watches. And they would take our drugs and monies as they pick our pockets. I guess that's the privilege of policing for some profit. But thanks to Reaganomics, prison turned to profits. Cause free labor's the cornerstone of U.S. economics. Cause slavery was abolished unless you are in prison. You think I ambush it and then read the 13th Amendment. Involuntary servitude and slavery it prohibits. That's why they giving drug offenders time in double digits. Ronald Reagan was an actor, not at all a factor. Just an employee of the country's real masters. Just like the Bushes, Clinton and Obama. Just another talking head telling lies on teleprompters. If you don't believe the theory, then argue with this logic. Why did Reagan and Obama both go after Gaddafi? We invading sovereign soil, going after oil. Taking countries is a hobby, paid for by the oil lobby. Same as in Iraq and Afghanistan. And Ahmadinejad say they coming for Iran. They only love the rich and how they load the poor. If I say any more, they might be at my door. Who the fuck is that? Staring in my window, doing that surveillance on Mr. Michael Render. I'm dropping off the grid before they pump the lead. I leave you with 4 words, I'm glad Reagan dead.
just to flex on them, we ain't really gotta lie, yo. I'm the type of motherfucker that'll check the check, do the math, I ain't never getting robbed. Those margaritas not going on my card. I ain't about to split a damn thing for convenience sake. I'm at the restaurant working that way too. Hold up, you ain't heard of Lil Day, young L, the Jew biz major. Fuck you know about the world he raised in. I've been saving money since a motherfucker 13. I wear the same pair of jeans every day. Free sandwiches, homie, 2 stamps away. Book flight December, but I leave in May. Drugs are generic, but still work the same. I get logins for Netflix from my cousin Greg. Thanks, Greg.
I swear to God, nigga. All of my bitches be scared of me, I put that rod in them. All of them bitches acting thoughtless, I disregard them. All of them bitches acting holy, ain't got no God in them. I can teach a little nigga something like a preacher. I can take his ass to church, fresh as hell, no Easter. I can make his ass burp like a baby without no hiccup. I can...
Quan, what does this have to do with saving money, though? You know what, a full verse would have been too expensive anyways.
Try. I ain't parking at a less than meter green, homie. Haircut several months in between, homie. Hit the motherfucking lights when I leave, homie. Single plot TP, ass bleed. Airbnb, the motherfucking lease, I'm never there. I'm out in Cali, why the fuck my company in Delaware? Happy hour taking out a chicken, I don't even care. That applies to both dating and wings. Heat matinees, phone bill, got the motherfucking fam on it. 401k, rolling over bands on it. Copper sweaters in the summer when the sale on them. The fuck you rappers bragging about, you overpaying for it. Bar with a cover, low thread count, hard with the covers. Free trial memberships, dawg. I never joined the shits, dawg. Fuck you think this is, dawg? Free been flying like a motherfucking finch, though. General style, half a dozen on a stick, just so I can whet the appetite a bit. What you talking about? My AC never doing nothing, blow fans, though. Walgreens, car shopping, all the off brands, though. Boy, go hard when collecting, got Venmo. Save every motherfucker roach, try smoke. Check the clothes in my drawers, I ain't playing around. It's LD, little boy, Mr. Hand Me Down. Dirty drawers getting worn, can you blame me now? You think I got 450 up in corners on me? Well, I fucking don't.
Restaurant and got an iced coffee and the waiter been refilling that without a word of caution. And you get your fucking bill and you can see double charging for the coffee. And you told him there's a problem, sing along like, oh, don't double charge me for that. Don't double charge me. We like, oh, don't double charge me for that. Don't do it to yourself, cause I might just ask what the ice cube's worth. What the ice cube's worth, that's the only differentiator making this a non-free perk. And I might make work more difficult for you than it need be. So think about it, take a minute, let it breathe be. But think about it, bro, you saw me get the burger with the bacon on the side. After looking at the price of the side of just bacon and comparing that to what the difference in the cheeseburger versus the bacon cheeseburger was. And making my decision, I would hate to be the waiter trying to tell me something different. I'ma get on Yelp in a minute and review this piece of shit place like only a kite know how. Unless you take the extra coffee off, I might get loud. Unless you, oh, it was just an accident. You didn't even mean to, you didn't even, that's so, I'm so embarrassed.
All right, so, you know, given what you said about, you know, what's possible with Black Wall Street and, you know, our capabilities, I think, you know, I always wonder sometimes how those like Mr. Gurley would feel kind of looking at where we are today. You said, hey, listen, if you want to take your reparations and buy Nikes, so be it. And then we've got, you know, again, social media always clowning, always setting it off, and
The internet is the winner,
the number
the
one,
champion.
the number one stunner. And WAP came out, and it sparked a lot of controversy. A lot of controversy. I won't even say what WAP stands for, but I think many of our listeners already know.
We're gonna keep it PG.
We gonna keep it. Yeah, man. And some things I would blush to say anyway.
I ain't gonna blush, but I'm just saying we need to keep it PG. We don't know who's listening. Somebody's grandma, some stuff.
Hey, listen.
My mama already called me, Let me be great, Ma. Let me be great.
And so Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion came under a lot of criticism. And not just from the broader community, but from the Black community. And again, I think it goes back to the point we were making before about, we've always, by hook or crook, and everything in between, we've figured out ways to survive. And I gotta ask you, Leo Sunfire, like, how do you feel about this? Is this really an expression of freedom and Black women's freedom in terms of their sexuality, or is this just a hot mess?
It's a hot mess. Call it a spade a spade. I mean, come on now. Do you really gotta talk about that right there? I mean, I'm just gonna, for those that didn't know, because I just learned what it meant too. I had to ask the younger generation because I'm getting up there in age. I'm not really all aware of what the new is. So I had to ask what it meant, and to find out, I grabbed my pearls and I forgot to put them on. So I'm reaching for nothing, trying to figure out how is it that we actually got songs that is explicit like this, talking about that. Wet stuff. I'm just saying. I mean, I'll let you fill in the blank from there. If you gotta talk about it, is it really that wet? I'm just saying.
Well, listen, Cardi B said, hey, she don't cook, she don't clean, and she still got the ring.
It's Cardi B. I mean, she got a personality to go with it, but some of these basics out here, they trying to play that same game.
Offset not gonna be looking for you.
Yeah, nah. You just gonna be sitting around talking about I don't cook and clean. We know.
And I mean, you had like the generation before us. I mean, if grandmama worked outside of the home, she still came home, cooked, she still cleaned the house, she still was responsible for the child rearing responsibilities. But today, Black women, hey, listen, they are not only frying the bacon, they're bringing it home. And I think that's what, whether it was hit or miss or not, I think that's what they were trying to express. But
Cardi B
and Meg, don't leave Meg out.
Oh, that's a whole house. Did you understand? That's what they were showing on the video. Yeah. I mean, they even threw Kylie in there. I'm just saying. Yeah. I get the whole women empowerment thing because I'm a woman and I am willing to, or more than willing to, empower all women, especially my sisters, my queens. I don't know if going about it, talking about, what I walk on, what I carry around with me is the best way of getting it off, I mean, my brains, I'm sexy. I'm just saying, I mean, you got to put that out there without saying it. You don't have to always tell it the way it is. You could just let people understand it for what it is,
So we ain't always got to lead with TNA is basically what you're saying.
You ain't got to.
And I think, one of the things that, for me, I'm always looking at this through the lens of history and present time. And, we know that on the auction blocks, the way in which you sold Black women was to expose them, their genitalia, and everything, and taking away their humanity, right? And making us overly sexual, right? And so what's not missed on me is that Black women are sexually violated at a rate far higher than other women, and on the one end, I can see it through the lens of, we're kind of perpetuating this stereotype from, being on the auction block all the way through to these video vixens, who are half naked women, who are the sort of the prop, if you will, in videos. But a part of me also, hey, listen, I love rap music, and I'm just not going to even apologize for it.
Me either.
But I have heard men say some of the most raunchy, ridiculous stuff, and I have danced to these lyrics.
Yeah,
and, I mean, unashamed. Like, well, he ain't talking about me. He not putting it in my ear, so I mean, it don't matter. And listen, I'm a Mystical fan. Love it or hate it. I mean, and he listen. And so I think that they are also women in an industry where sex and their sexuality is allowing them to make millions, so absolutely. Megan Thee Stallion definitely is an educated woman, she's college educated. Cardi B, really sort of built her way up from being a stripper to now making, platinum records. Absolutely. And so, I mean, do we allow for this double standard?
I don't really think there's a double standard. I just think that they got to figure out what else is going to work for them. I mean, at 65, if all you got to talk about is your WAP, I mean,
and at 65, is it still WAP?
I mean, it's just kind of all gone, crumbled.
Blowing the dust off that butt.
The dust off of the joint. Yeah.
I want to see him in the video for vaginal dryness at 65.
Listen, holding up the cream. Hey. This makes me have the WAP again.
Baby.
Stop. I'm just saying, but I don't want to hate on the younger generation and say that they're bad for expressing themselves, because this is just their way of doing things, the same way we had our way of doing it during our time, our generation, where I mean we had some raunchy stuff going on in the music industry when we was coming up. So I don't want to hate on the young people, but sometimes you can go too far. I mean, they went a little far for me. I can't speak on for nobody else, but for me, it was a lot.
I respect that. And right at the same time that this is happening, we get this announcement, right? We all knew, right? The rumblings were that our next VP on the Democratic ticket was going to be a black woman, and I think 5 black women made the short list, but it landed on Kamala Harris. And man, if you all could see Leo's face when you heard her clearing her throat,
Let me clear my throat.
She set off all kind of fires this week that I felt like I had to put out, to just deal with this topic. And okay, so let's give a little background, for all of our listeners about Kamala, and how she kind of rose to this status. She's the first woman of color to be on a major, ticket for president. Vice president, I should say. We know she stands on the shoulders of greats like Shirley Chisholm and others. Kamala is very much so a self-identified black woman. Her mom is Indian, her dad is Jamaican. She has roots in the black community, having graduated from an HBCU. She's an AKA. Oh man, I can hear the ski-wees already out there. See, they would just choke you right now.
I'm just teasing. I got a lot of love for y'all. A lot of love.
Shout out to the AKAs. We love y'all. We love the Deltas too, and all of all of our black
sisters doing things.
But that being said, the reason I think she was so controversial, nobody's going to debate this part of it, is because sort of her rise to political fame is her role as a prosecutor. And Kamala certainly was at the forefront of prosecuting people of color, black men in particular, and passing legislation that furthered incarceration of black men. So there's a lot of controversy. She doesn't come without controversy. I think that there was less controversy around Barack. That is not the case with Kamala. I mean, a lot of people are still, I don't know how I feel about this. So that's what I want us to really kind of touch on and kind of chew on in this last segment.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, whenever you're ready to get to it, let's get to it.
Hey, I'm just gonna turn it over to you because I already know.
Oh, okay.
You're about to set this on fire.
Chameleon Harris. Kamala. AKA Black Mamba. Cut the snake off. Cut the head off that snake.
Wow.
Yeah, we get into it. She ain't never considered herself a black woman until now. As the president, a nominee, or candidate, running candidate, we know what she is, who she is. She knows who she is and what she is. She didn't grow up here in America to understand any of the struggles that we went through. She lived in Canada all the way until she came to college. So as young black girls or women, she never understood what we had to experience, like the pressures that come from being in a biracial, a mixed society, or even a predominantly black society, getting the lesser education or any of that. She was in Canada. I know she got black blood and her face looks black, but that don't mean that's what she is. You can paint an elephant pink, but that don't mean that's what they really are. They just an elephant with pink paint. I'm just saying.
And you raise a really important issue with respect to the black community, right? And that black immigrants have a very different experience than those who were born in the United States. And I think part of that sort of, them viewing us in a very whitewashed way, seeing us as lazy or degenerate and perhaps even, not so much worthy, but complicit in our punishment for these street level crimes might explain kind of why, she took the approach that she did. But I found it ironic that, one, I really didn't think she would be the choice for him. She came so hard for him. If any of you remember back when the Democratic debates were going on, she was the one, she really became a standout because she came ferociously at Joe Biden and critiqued his sort of image as, a person who's in favor of the black community when she pointed out that he voted against busing and busing that she benefited from. So I think she did have some time in the States, whether her family traversed back and forth between here and Canada, but she critiqued him heavily for, not being in favor of busing. Yeah. That wasn't just, she was passionate about it. I didn't know who she was until those debates.
Chameleon. I call her a chameleon for that reason, because Dr. Love, she can blend in and adapt to whatever the situation is at the time. Her rise to fame is what's important. What she leaves, the residue that she leaves behind is not even considered. You're talking about lives. You're not talking about somebody that you had a car accident and you had insurance to pay for it. You're talking about lives ruined.
Completely ruined.
Not just on the level of saying, oh, well, we had a couple of thugs that went to jail. No, she was incarcerating black men for having very minimal amounts of marijuana on them, and they were probably on their way coming back from work, working hard, getting want to relax and chill out. Now, how many of us go get a bottle of alcohol after we done worked hard all day and want to just relax? But these brothers went to jail. Not to mention, I gotta put this out here because this is the part that bothered me the most. The thousands of families that were destroyed because of the truancy law that she put in place in California. Thousands. She even sent a woman to jail for 180 days because her child missed school. Now, can you imagine the impact that has had on these black children with their parents being locked up for not going to school?
Wow. And you and I understand this because we both have siblings.
Absolutely.
And we have siblings that are younger than us, and we know the importance that plays in larger families where you as an older sibling are responsible for taking care of younger siblings.
Absolutely.
And sometimes that means you can't participate in all school activities, but even just the devastation in our community where, I'm sure you did, I know I did, had a school, had a job while I was in school, And so sometimes this vested interest in school is not because we are not capable, but certainly we just don't always see that as a legitimate way of sustaining and helping our families, and the reality of that. And so can she undo, some of these things? Can she make amends for that?
How do you undo thousands of families you've destroyed behind that? I mean, she didn't even consider thinking about it until she decided to run for the presidency. I mean, I understand that. I don't know if people understand that. You pick and choose when you care. You can't do that. You can't say, okay, well, at this moment, we're going to go ahead and lock up anybody because the kids need to go to school, and we're going to lock up their parents if they don't go to school. Well, I understand you want the kids to go to school, but to lock their parents up where they provide for their children for 180 days, that means they lose housing, they lose jobs, they lose any means to come back from that. And
you're furthering the likelihood that they're not going to be vested in school. They're going to continue to be truant.
Absolutely. And this didn't happen to one or two people. These are thousands of mothers that dealt with this. In California especially, you can look it up. I mean, people can Google these things and find out. Please research and do your research before you go into anything blindly.
No doubt. So I want to pick back up on that after this break. You are listening to Black Portal Power.
Enough electoral votes, more than 270, more than enough to become the 44th President of the United States. He will be the first African-American President of the United States.
I've been broke all my life, but I kept hope all them nights. You see business in my city? Yeah, they closed all them twice. I was just riding down Salem, all them damn potholes, I can't drive. I know y'all can fix it faster, but I know y'all won't try. Don't nobody care about us, and that's why I don't vote. Voted for Obama back in 2012, I remember that's when I had hope. He was saying, yes, we can, and everybody got less food stamps. And when I turned 21, I was still broke, I'd never vote again. I don't think I ever had a president make my life better. Did it all on my own, ain't no politician ever do a nice gesture. I don't even know the mayor's name, I ain't never seen her one time ever. Tell me how she gonna help the city. What I'm supposed to do, write letters? What I'm supposed to do, blame Trump? He ain't never really gave a ain't nobody raised minimum wage. None of these jobs pay enough. I think they just want to keep us broke, cause they ain't putting nothing in place for us. This how all my people feel, but we gotta learn. We complained enough, let me change it up. Everything I just said, everybody I know think the same way. See, they don't want to see us vote, and we never do, so we see the same thing. But all our votes really do count, and they'll never really let it show. So now I'm finna break it down, cause if I don't, you would probably never know. First thing first, you know back in middle school when they taught us, it was 3 branches of the government. We forgot it when we got older. It's the judicial, the legislative, and executive. But all we know is the executive. That's the mayor, or the governor, and the president. Now none of them 3 people make no laws, they just be checking them. The laws come to their desk and all they do is say no or yes to it. So when the news station tried to tell us that Barack Obama couldn't put us on, we was all salty at Obama when it was the Congress members all along. We gotta focus on the legislative branch, yeah, they the ones that make the laws. Yeah, they the ones write how much food stamp money you get on the card. But when people that wanted to help us wanted the job, I know they probably lost. Cause we ain't even know their name, we ain't know their face, we ain't know it all. So the Congress or the State House, that's legislative, they make laws. So what we want from the president is what they do, okay y'all? See, they election every 2 years, but we don't ever even go to those. The Congress, they can raise minimum wage, but we ain't even really know it though. So you know how back in 08, when we all voted for Obama, we was all supposed to go back in 2010 and vote for the Congress. Cause they the ones make child support laws, they the ones choose if your kids at school get to eat steak or corn dogs. The State House make the court costs. So if the country failed, then you can't say it's them, it's your fault. Cause y'all ain't know to vote for Congress members that was for y'all. And they don't gotta leave after 4 years, and we just let them sit. See, they don't wanna tell you this, they want you to focus on the president. Now the 3rd branch is the judicial, that's judges. They the reason why John Crawford and Trayvon ain't had justice. So when Meek Mill got locked up just for popping willies, we blame the judge and not the city when they let her get voted in, cause they ain't know who to vote against. Imagine life on the other side. Roads better, schools better, everybody get their they license back. Grocery store food better, custody of your kids back. Homeless people get new shelters. If we gon' fix the U.S., we gotta start with them 2 letters. Me and you, somebody told us that the government wanna keep us broke, but the only reason why those people in the government is cause we ain't vote. And I ain't talking about the president, I'm talking about the ones we ain't know. See, they was gonna try to keep it low, but it's gonna hurt them when they see the polls.
Every time you stay home, someone is making a decision about you, making decisions about the air you breathe, the water you drink, the food your kids eat, and how much money you bring home every 2 weeks. So every time you sit out an election, every time you don't show up because you think it doesn't matter, someone else is happy that you didn't show up, so they can make that decision for you. Vote.
So you were mentioning, just again, the policies that she cannot deny, right? In terms of, when you're a prosecutor or attorney general, your all of your decisions are a part of the public record. And I think, I want to kind of backtrack a little bit and say, I think this goes back to a lot of the rhetoric we hear all the time. Well, we need more people of color. We need more black people as police officers. We need more black prosecutors. We need more black mayors. At the end of the day, they have to demonstrate that they are blue if they're police officers, or, that they are willing to prosecute within our community. So I think a lot of things were at play in terms of the decisions that she made then. First and foremost, being of immigrant status in terms of her parents. And again, we know that black immigrants view Native blacks in a very different way, sometimes in line with sort of the way the dominant culture views Native blacks. But then also we're talking about the criminal justice system in particular, where I have not seen evidence where more representation means change to that system. I think that system is so curtailed to be racially and economically biased. Absolutely. That anybody they are the equivalent of those who have sort of adapted to a system that is inherently biased.
Absolutely.
So I don't know that allows itself a lot of room for change. Although I will not take Kamala off the hook, because as prosecutor, you get to make decisions about which cases you move forward and which ones you don't. So I think she was in a very unique position as a prosecutor and in a very unique position as an attorney general. So I have to ask you, Leo Sunfire, because you are on fire today. I want to ask you this question. I want you to, really say, do you think, given now she's been elevated to this status where she's on the Democratic ticket for vice president, that she owes the black community an apology for these past aggressions?
Certainly she owes the black community an apology, but are you for real about it? Do you mean it? I mean, you're only saying it because as a chameleon, you're adapting to the situation that you're sitting in right now. It's, you stood on the branch, now you gotta change your color to fit in and look like the branch. You really don't mean it, because you're only saying it now. I mean, you did a grandiose job making sure you put as many black people in jail for almost absolutely no reason. No reason. Not because they were bringing harm to someone else. They decided they were going to rob someone else and take something from someone else or do any of those things. Just minor crimes. You made sure they served time, which altered their lives completely. We all know that when a black person goes to jail, the sentences and the harshness of the treatment after the aftermath, I should call it, is completely different than our white counterparts.
No doubt.
When they come, they can have a misdemeanor on their record, and yet somebody will find it. A job will find. Oh no, you've been arrested for X, Y, and Z, possession, minor possession. I mean, the damage,
right. The damage it does in terms of housing.
Absolutely.
All of these things that are necessary for successful reintegration are stunted when you have a criminal record. Yeah. And it's almost, again, the equivalent of the new Jim Crow, because now you are giving states and these systems the authority to further disenfranchise people who have criminal records. Is it possible for her to even be a vice president who is responsive, given, again, these past aggressions, not just transgressions, but aggressions against the Black community? How does she walk that back? Can she walk that back?
I mean, you gotta mean it. I mean, I'm gonna keep saying that. You have to mean what you say if you're gonna do it. I mean, you talking to me though. I mean, politics that's a subject matter that we don't like to touch too often. But you really gotta mean it. For example, I'll give you a little background on. There's a guy named Steve Munchin that you know who he is. You know he was responsible for that Fannie Mae foreclosure, the pandemic. I'm gonna call it that the Black people or most poor people or middle class people, however you want to say it, in California had to deal with it. It was foreclosure after foreclosure after foreclosure. Well, he racked up about 5,000 charges against him. 5,000. And do you know that she blocked every prosecutor from prosecuting that man? But you put Black people in jail for simple possession and truancy?
And it goes back to politicians, right? And again, let me be clear that prosecutors are elected officials. These are elected officials. And so is it possible to even be altruistic, to really have this regard and sentiment for people that can translate to legislation when you're a politician? So now you raised the even bigger issue within this issue. Can politicians be genuine? You keep saying they have to mean it. Can you mean it if your target keeps changing? Well, I got to appease these people over here, but I also got to appease these people over here. So I'm going to say this in this group. I'm going to say this in this setting with this group of people. Can politicians even be genuine at this point? Or is our system...
That's an oxymoron for me to answer. But if you really want me to say something...
I do.
No. If you really want to get to it, there's too many players in the game for them to be genuine with their words. They have to run it by too many people for it to be a commitment to anyone. And one of the things my people have to understand is that we put too much weight and emphasis on what someone says they're going to do. Our mothers can tell us that they're going to do something, we won't even believe them. But if the president or the candidate that's running for whatever office says they're going to do it, we throw money at them. We get behind them. We put up pins and we go spend our time and energy making sure that they keep their word. But what word are they keeping? It's too many channels they have to go through to make a decision. And the things that they promise people that they will do can't be done without going through those channels. So you know how it was when you looked at your child in the eyes and said, yeah, I'm gonna buy you that bicycle. But then one day you something happened financially, you couldn't buy it, and that feeling you had in the middle of your chest and your stomach when you had to go tell your kid, I can't afford it right now, if that's what happened. But it happens to a lot of people. I can't afford that right now, but I will get it for you. You might make good on it eventually.
Yeah, because you're going to put it on layaway.
You're going to put it on layaway.
So you might not get it for Christmas, but you're going to get it after Christmas.
They ain't putting it on nothing. They ain't putting it on nothing. What they got? What do they have to give up? Nothing. You've already put them in the position to make decisions for you. So what are they losing? Nothing. Because they made you a promise that they're going to break. Yeah, they're not going to trip on that at all. But you're sitting over there with that pit in your stomach because you had to tell your kids something or somebody you care about something that you can't keep your word on. There was an old saying, your word is your bond.
And that's certainly true in the Black community, that we tend to lead toward, if you tell me this is what you're going to do, then we take your word for it. Yep. We don't really, and I think we're absolutely forgiving when our political leaders don't make good on the promises that they made after we've, spent nickels and dimes that we didn't have to propel these people into public office. And which makes me think about her, at least based on what we know, there were at least 5 women, including Kamala, who were being heavily vetted and considered for this position. And I honestly, this is something I shared with you in our conversation about this topic. I believe she was chosen because she is the more conservative choice.
Absolutely.
Right? That I think that when politics are the discussion point, that you've got to consider like that, the fact that this is all a game of chess. This is a game of strategy. When you had other people like Susan Rice and I believe Loretta Lynch, these really more progressive people who also have a lot more experience working with the White House or in the, Justice Department and under President Obama. And I think this was a strategy move for the Biden camp, to pick someone who was sort of demonstrates this tough on crime, especially now with discussions around do we defund the police or reform the police. She certainly represents law and order in some ways, but she also, again, with that 1-2 punch that she hit him with in terms of calling him out on things that he signed into legislation that were biased against the Black community. So she called out him as, you're not really, for the Black community. So I think even her choice was a very political one,
Absolutely.
When you think about people like Shirley Chisholm, who, again, but it's not missed on me that we're still in the height of a historic moment, and I don't know how to reconcile that all the time.
Well, Dr. Love, I have to ask you a question based on your professionalism in the justice system as a prosecutor. How long is it a career for a prosecutor normally?
As long as they're elected. So if they continue to be reelected, so they don't, and again, it varies from state to state, but they don't have these set terms, sort of like the presidency, where a person can only be at maximum a 2-term president. They can be elected and reelected, kind of like your sheriffs, your police chiefs. And again, that does, I'm not saying that doesn't vary from place to place, but by and large, they're elected officials, and as long as they run, they can be in those appointments.
Well, career-wise, how do people normally deal with that job, that position as a DA, a prosecutor for the state, whichever state that they're in?
So they are always acting on behalf of the state. Right. So this is whatever the state law is. So for prosecutors in particular, right, that they are employees of the state.
Absolutely.
And so their job is, so when you look at legal documents, especially in criminal proceedings, or even in civil proceedings for that matter, depending on the nature of the civil proceeding, but in criminal proceedings in particular, it is the state of versus that person.
Absolutely.
So even the victim, if it's a personal crime, the victim is a witness to a crime. The crime was committed against the state. And so your prosecutors are all individuals who are acting on behalf of the state. They are lawyers for the state. And then attorney generals have an even higher position in that they make executive decisions about which cases get filed, right? So an arrest can be made, but the prosecutor still has the decision-making power to say, we're going to file charges, or I don't have enough here to file charges, or for whatever reason. So they are very much so motivated by political sort of pressures. And prosecutors are in the business of winning cases. So if it's a case that they don't see that they can win, they're typically not going to move forward with that case. And so because they're elected officials, their record is really important, right? How often they actually
with the background you just gave us on how that works, how does that impact them as an individual? Most people that you've come in contact with, how does that impact their personal life, their personality? What does that do to them?
Now, I've had the great fortune, at least since I've been here in Kansas City, to work with prosecutors who really are vested in the community. And I think Kansas City is unique in a lot of ways. It was the first time I heard a prosecutor say in a meeting with the community, in a town hall meeting with the community, that they know they can't arrest and prosecute their way out of violent crime, that we have to do something different. And I think it really does depend on how vested those prosecutors are in the communities that they serve, right? And understanding that they should not be making decisions even if unattendedly, can disrupt the community. So you pointed out how, you can say, well, this drug dealer is a problem in the community, but he also is a father. He's also somebody's son. So his incarceration can have this ripple effect that further disenfranchises a community that's already suffering, right? So when we know that kids who have an incarcerated parent are far more likely to be incarcerated later in life themselves. And so I think, Kamala, again, was in a very unique position where, as a woman of color, she could have made inroads to saying, we need to do something about these policies that target and prosecute people of color. And I think she made some decisions that now, if she could undo, she would undo.
I don't think she would undo it at all. I think she bragged a lot about it and still do.
Yeah.
I mean, you have many excerpts of her chuckling as she's speaking on the amount of arrests that she has made and the laws and how it impacted people. I think she finds it quite funny, and that's why I said she's the Black Mamba, and she really needs to get their head chopped off. I mean, I feel that way. That's just me personally. I think that people are going to go blindly because she's a woman and she's of color, and they're going to put her in a position that they're going to regret. Period.
And I think it goes back to, this whole idea of presenting yourself as a prosecutor, and especially a woman who's in that role, as someone who's tough on crime. Nobody wants to appear to be soft on crime when you're on that side of it.
I understand.
So, Leo, you raise a really important question. I mean, because again, we're going to the polls, as you said, and we have to make our mark come November. Good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. And I mean, it sounds to me like we are stuck with choosing between the lesser of two evils.
Yikes.
So I'm gonna put you on the spot again and say, so what do? We certainly have cause for lamentations over, as well as celebrations around Kamala Harris being nominated on the Democratic ticket for Vice President of the United States. But come November, what do? Do we abstain? Do we and make our voices be heard that way? Do we go out and vote and choose and hope, that she's a reformed person when it comes to these sort of policies and practices that we don't agree with? Where do we fall?
For me, I spoke on this during our show last week. I don't perpetuate lies. But for others that will go out and find their time and effort to put in and just to make their mark, do your research. The frying pan and the skillet is hot, no matter which one you in. Hopefully both of them got grease in them. That way you can jump around a little bit, but they still hot. You're going to get fried and burnt up no matter which one you land in. And there is no such thing as lesser of two evils. Evil is evil. No matter if they black or white. I'm just saying.
And that you did. So I know you wanted us to close out with some remarks from Kamala that you want our listeners to take in.
Absolutely. I got a little treat for you. So please listen up and pay attention to the words that are coming out of her mouth.
Do you support reparations for Black people?
Well, listen, again, we had over 200 years of slavery. We had Jim Crow for almost a century. We had legalized discrimination and segregation, and now we have segregation and discrimination that is not legal but still exists and is a barrier to progress. We have disparities around housing. We have disparities around education. We have disparities around income. And we have to recognize that everybody did not start out on an equal footing in this country. And in particular, Black people have not. And so we have got to recognize that and do something about that and give folks a lift up. That's why, for example, I'm proposing the LIFT Act. Give people who are making $100,000 or less as a family a tax credit, which will benefit and uplift 60% of Black families who are in poverty.
So by default, it affects Black families, but there's not a particular policy for African Americans that you would explore.
But no, if you look at the reality of who will benefit from certain policies, when you take into account that they're not starting at the same place and they're not starting on equal footing, it will directly benefit black children, black families, black homeowners, because the disparities are so significant. So if we focus on the specific issues that have resulted in the greatest disparities, and we understand that that's part of why we're doing it. Listen, the reality also is this. Any policy that will benefit black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No, because whatever benefits that black family will benefit that community and society as a whole and the country. Right?
That leaves us to the end of our show. This is Leo Sunfire.
And this is Dr. Love.
With Black Portal Power. Please join us next week when we have more discussions on
everything.
Dun, dun, dun. Peace. Thank you for listening to Black Portal Power. You can tune in every Monday, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time on BSB Radio. Open your mind.
Free your soul.
For the portal is always open.